All right. Thank you very much. All right. My story is called What She Left. Polly was brash, a gnarled and storied champion of civil rights and bodily autonomy. Her friends included Gloria Steinem, Dolores Huerta, Cesar Chavez, and Angela Davis. She defended abortion rights in the 60s. She negotiated fair pay as a union organizer in the 70s. She fought for environmental protections in the 80s, and she stood for immigration rights in the 90s. In the 2000s, she retired, traveling a bit and dabbling in glass art, chain-smoking Marlboros and chain-drinking Diet Coke. She supported causes from afar and worked locally in Mosaic, fused glass, piss, and vinegar. The very fabric of her DNA was caustic. After decades of fighting the good fight, it was unclear if she remembered how to unclench her fists. I met Polly in 2020. For 40 years, she'd been living in the first house I would ever own. There was only one stipulation. Polly came with it. My mother and I were looking for a place to live together and to hold hope for the next generation. We fell in love with the two small houses, the adobe walls, the gardens, the fireplace. The property was on the market for like 6 hours. We were lucky to tour it, to meet Polly, and make one of the 8 offers that she received that day. We were not the highest bid, but she picked us. I told myself she saw our vision and the pureness of my heart standing there on her doorstep that October day. My mom moved into the main house right away. I kept couch surfing, and Polly stayed put, rooted, decorating the adobe walls with glass creations and tinkering in the gardens. My mom often found herself collecting both the mail and Polly's biting commentary on our landscaping choices, or watering plants while enduring lectures about water consumption. Polly wielded her cane like an exclamation point. Her harshness came from a deep sense of stewardship, but it was hard not to shrink away when the walker rose in your direction. No matter how well-meaning her message, she promised she'd be gone in 4 months. She couldn't bear another Tucson summer. Our agreement was month to month with a year cap, so how bad could it be? 8 months in, it was clear the calendar was not moving her. I realized she needed to interface with my humanity. We set up Sunday morning Mosaic sessions. We'd glue broken glass. We'd wipe wet grout, and we'd discuss the calamity of current events. And subtly, my imminent need for housing. We'd talk through the ups and downs and when she'd be moving on. Polly had a huge heart, but it had hardened. Don't have kids, she warned. We've already killed the earth. And don't worry about Donald Trump this term, but the person elected after him will be the next Hitler. It became a doomsday Tuesdays with Morrie situation. She was brilliant and bleak, and I often left in tears. By July, we're 10 months in here, she announced she was departing, that her boxes were packed, her plane ticket was purchased. So I asked for a final walkthrough on Monday. She grew irate. Quit crowding me. What could you possibly need to know now? Are you too stupid to turn on the water heater or something? I interrupted. Polly, this is the last step in our transition. I want to do this with dignity and respect. She paused, and she did something she didn't do often. She agreed. All I want is dignity and respect. Then her tone snapped back. Go in the house whenever you want, it's yours. Monday morning arrived, and so did the police, a fire truck, and an ambulance. It wasn't her first emergency. I'd seen her through fractures and falls. I ran into the house and fetched her son's phone number for the police. I returned to find her assistant, shaken. Curtly, she said, Polly's a stubborn woman. She went to the hospital. She'll be back in a few days. After everyone left, I stepped to the front door. Printed on her formal letterhead was a sign. Emergency inside, call 911. This was a self-determined death. I crumpled. Death was her move-out plan. Inside, do not resuscitate orders were taped to every single wall in the house. There was a pile of suggested reading and a formal suicide letter documenting the cocktail of pills that she had squirreled away over the last 5 years. It detailed the medical challenges that complicated her life and concluded with a statement. I will not endure the indignities of slowly advancing dementia in a nursing home after such a wonderful life. The letter and every other piece of paper in the house was notarized from months earlier. On the table was her final journal entry. It read, I ground up all the pills. I mixed them in pudding. It was very bitter and god-awful. I needed Listerine, and then vodka made it better. Don't know if I made it. At her bedside, there was a nitrogen tank with a face mask. There were plastic bags big enough to cover a head, and a dish of coins marked, for the ferryman at the river Styx. Posters and pamphlets covered the house, and they all said, death with dignity and respect. She'd left me highlighted newspaper clippings, insinuating that I'd be in legal danger if she had asked for help. I would have held her hand. I wondered if she knew. The whole scene was shocking. And yet, one of the things that rattled me the most was that nothing in the house had been packed. The house was as is. It was as if she'd gone to the store and could be back any minute. It seemed she'd given her best attempt at getting out of life, but the messages that she was coming back were so unclear. On Wednesday, her son called. She was in the hospital, dazed and angry to still be alive. Look, he said, she's set on this. He said quite flatly. So as soon as she just gets out of the hospital, I'll put her back in the house and let her keep trying until she figures it out. I prayed her soul would find the exit hatch for both of our sake. 3 days later, she passed in the hospital. Now that her fate was sealed, I opened her final sealed letter to me. She thanked us for our patience. She said her son would handle all her belongings swiftly, and she left me her mosaic glass. She wrote, I heard your need for housing, and it fixed my position. A completed life is no more than destiny. It is my future. Thanks, dear girl. And in true Polly form, she tucked in a Better Landscapers business card. What proceeded from there was anything but swift. Polly's son delayed clearing the estate, obstructed proceedings, and threatened my mom and I with physical violence and squatters' rights. One restraining order and 2 pandemic Zoom court appearances later, he had successfully wasted our time and thousands of our dollars for a failed attempt at repossessing a house he never owned and a security deposit he never earned. Eventually, he abandoned everything. His baby pictures, diplomas, her books, furniture, and entire life. When he finally disappeared, I was left standing in the rubble of a whole secondhand life. Every object, lamps, teacups, stacks of papers, they seemed to hum with leftover meaning. I spent weeks putting her things out on the curb, just watching strangers carry away pieces of her story. The house emptied slowly in small public rituals. And though her belongings disappeared, her presence didn't. It lingered in the reminder that we all inherit one another's unfinished lives. During the release, Polly began appearing in my dreams. At first, on the periphery, then closer, and finally stepping in between a stranger and I speaking. She stepped forward and smoke billowed out of her mouth. She handed me a note in invisible ink. She'd always been a difficult communicator. When the house was finally empty, it still felt full. I called a herd of healing arts practitioners to host a clearing ceremony. My mom and I sat crying, holding each other in the courtyard. We watched as they sang, chanted, burnt offerings, and scribed sacred messages with crushed eggshells all over the white walls. In the shafts of afternoon light, the smoke billowed, and the invisible ink finally felt visible. In the end, a clarity settled. Polly hadn't just chosen us as buyers. She had chosen us as witnesses, as non-consensual death doulas. It stings because I would have helped her go with grace. But instead, the whole thing unraveled in secrecy, in this hidden, solitary, familial mess. That breach between intention and isolation still aches. Her death was a final act of control, and it left behind a silence begging to be tended. It's been 5 years now since my first home buying experience. The house has continued to evolve with floods and robberies and repairs. Oh my. I plan to move back this coming spring, finally planting the roots I imagined, and one day, little feet that will drum hope into that patch of earth that we now steward. But before I move back, I wonder if you all could help me with something. I'd like to set this story free. I gave the library 15 books of Polly's collection, and I kept only a small group of her really historical, worldly, and feminist texts. What remains of her collection is here tonight. They felt too important to end up in the wrong hands. So I'm going to invite you to take as many as you'd like. May we each convert the secondhand hardness of our world into firsthand hope. Go forward, transforming darkness to light, and do me a favor, take a piece of Polly on your way.